Now, coming to the main gist of the play, as I told you, the play is adapted from the novel Hazrat Churashir Ma, a 1973-74 novel by Mahashweta Devi. It was translated by Samik Bandyopadhyay and adapted for the stage. The main character, as the title itself indicates, is Sujata Chatterjee. She comes from an affluent family in Calcutta and she's the mother of 1084. So the play begins with a call from the Kantapukur police morgue. Morgue is the place where dead bodies are kept, where her son Brati Chatterjee has been gunned down. He was a Naxal, he's a Naxal, and he was gunned down by the police. So the main character is Sujata Chatterjee, and a call comes to the Chatterjee family in the early hours of the morning, asking them to come and identify the body of the son, identify the corpse. So the play is about the awakening of an apolitical mother. The main characters are Sujata Chatterjee, of course. She's the mother of 1084, corpse number 1084. And the father is Dibyanath Chatterjee. And he also has a brother called Jyoti and sisters called Nipa and Tuli. So the mother, she comes to know her son after his death through a series of flashbacks. And how does Mahashweta Devi achieve this flashback on stage? You see a proscenium stage, a modern stage, you can imagine a stage. The stage is divided into two parts, okay? So a character that is dead, a character that is alive is suppose having a conversation with someone, okay? So the front part of the stage is lit up. The character called Sujata, she's having a conversation with some person, and this part of the stage will go dark and the rear part of the stage will come into light, and Sujata will simply cross over to the rear part of the stage, and that's where you will see Brati. So this is how Mahashweta achieves the flashback and flash forward technique. By shifting through the physical space of the stage, she's achieving a shift in time from the present moment to the past moment. So Sujata comes into contact with various people who had known Brati when he was alive. One of them is, of course, Shomu's mother. As I've mentioned in my previous lecture, that 1971 was also the time when Bangladesh was when Bangladesh found its own independence, achieved its own independence from Pakistan, and it was also the time when a lot of these refugees crossed over, they came across the border and they settled in various colonies in different parts of Bengal. So a lot of them were co-opted as part of the Naxalite movement, and Brati himself comes from an affluent family. You see that Sujata is a working woman and they come from an affluent family. Brati is educated in Presidency College and he is ideologically influenced by Charu Mazumdar into believing in a welfare state, into believing that a revolution or a social revolution, a class revolution, can bring about an egalitarian society or a welfare state where everyone is equal. Okay. So you see that Sujata, she comes into contact with various people, and one of them is Shomu's mother. Brati's friends were Shomu, Bijit, all of them who were gunned down in Shomu's house itself. They all come from East Bengal. They're East Bengalis, and Brati goes to warn them. He receives a phone call and he goes to warn them, and it was his birthday and he can never return home. That is the night when he is gunned down. So one of the persons that Sujata comes in contact with is Shomu's mother, and the two figures are important because Shomu's mother presents a foil to the character of Sujata. She's a contrast to the character of Sujata. The word to remember is foil, because the two of them come from two different classes in society. Whereas both of them have lost their sons, whereas Sujata is a working lady, and you will see that Divyanath and the rest of the family, they have tried to distance themselves from their connection with Brati, as if the son never existed for them. So 1 year after the death of the son, nobody talks about the son. It's as if he never existed. He was never part of the family. Even when in the first scene, when the phone call comes from the Kantapukur police morgue, you see Dibyanath refuses to take his own car to the morgue to identify the body of the son for fear that people will find out and the name of the family will be tarnished. So you see, for an affluent family, it is easy to cover up something like this and continue with their lives. But for a family like Shomu's mother, Shomu's sister, after the death of Shomu, they were earning their bread and butter. Shomu's sister was giving tuitions. It's impossible for her because they come from a much lower sort of socio-economic strata. So it's very difficult for her to even get tuitions because they're labeled as a family of the Nakshals. So the two women, their reaction to the death of their son, their class positions, the reaction to their grief also shows the class difference between them. Another person that Sujata comes into contact with is Nandini, who was Brati's girlfriend. She was also a student of Presidency College, and she was picked up by the police and tortured. There are suggestions in the text that Nandini was raped in police custody, and she was also one of the methods, one of the torture methods was that a bulb was kept in front of her eyes, a high intensity bulb, and it was kept alight 24 into 7. It was kept lit up 24 into 7. So as a result, Nandini is partially blind in both of her eyes. And when Sujata meets her, she covers her eyes with shades. She's always wearing specs, shades, dark shades. So Nandini was picked up by the police. She was tortured in police custody, and by coming into contact with Shomu's mother and by coming into contact with Nandini, Sujata is slowly discovering her son. She was closest to her son Brati, and she realizes that the rest of her family are basically living their middle class, indifferent, complacent lives and meaningless lives actually, whereas the son Brati stood for something that was far stronger, a kind of social change, a kind of social revolution, and she begins to identify with her son as she slowly discovers him. And at the end of the play, there is a big soliloquy by Sujata. She also has a tumor. Throughout the play, we see that she has a tumor, and the tumor is significant because at the end of the play, the tumor is also associated with childbirth and maternity. The tumor will burst and Sujata will collapse on stage. So at the end of the play, there is a long soliloquy by Sujata where she addresses the audience and asks them to wake up from their state of complacency and speak up about this police torture. The main antagonist, the police constable called Saroj Pal, he is invited. You see that this is the occasion of Brati's sister's marriage, and they have selected the same date that Brati died. It's as if Brati never existed for them. And Saroj Pal, who was responsible for Brati's death, he's also invited, and he's a police inspector. He had covered up the incident for the family. He's also invited as part of the wedding. And you see that at the end of the play, there's a soliloquy where Sujata addresses the audience, and now she has transformed from Brati's mother to a universal mother, and she tells Saroj Pal, she asks him, who are you going to kill tonight? You are going out in that police van and you will gun down another young man. And if another young man is gunned down in the streets today, another Brati will die. Once again, another Brati will die. And how long will the middle class society of Calcutta, how long will the complacent, indifferent middle class society of Calcutta, how long will they stay quiet and how long will they not speak up? So she asks the audience to speak up. She looks at the figures around her, the figures of Dibyanath. Dibyanath, of course, he was an irresponsible father. He's also an irresponsible husband. He had an affair with a typist. And Sujata never spoke up. But at the end of the play, she does speak up. And you see that she's addressing the audience and she's looking at the figures around her, the figures of Dibyanath, the figures of her other son, Jyoti, the figures of the sisters, Tuli and Nipa. And she's calling them Zinda Lash. Their lives are meaningless, okay? Whereas the son, Brati, who died, stood for something that was stronger, stood for an ideological cause, stood for a welfare state that was stronger, and that Sujata has now begun to identify with. So the play ends with her address to the audience where she has transformed into the universal mother. She confronts the police inspector Saroj Pal and the tumor bursts and she collapses on stage. Okay, so this is more or less the gist of the play. If you have any questions, of course, you're welcome to ask me and I'll be forwarding you some written material on Mahashweta Devi's play Mother of 1084.